Hello and welcome back to my Thoughtful Thursdays video channel where we talk about important topics both inside and outside the church. As always, thank you so much for your viewership and please subscribe below and turn on your notifications to see videos like these in the future. During my Fish Out of Water DVD giveaway 2 weeks ago, I was given some great suggestions for topics to talk about right here on my channel. And this week, I wanted to talk about one of those topics. That topic being the book of Revelation. Now, I can't think of a more highly debated book in terms of interpretation than the book of Revelation. Followers of Jesus have been doing this for quite some time. We fight over how to interpret this very book. Who is the author? Was it really John? Was it Jesus' best friend John? How do we know? When was the book written? Should this book even have been placed in the canon in the first place? When are the events of Revelation supposed to have taken place? In the past, in the present, or in the future? What do all the symbols mean? And who is the Antichrist? Followers of Jesus have spent, in my opinion, way too much time debating these details, when, once again, my opinion, I just don't think it matters. There, I've said it, it just doesn't matter that much. Why are we so obsessed with this book? Well, first I want to state that it's mainly a cultural obsession. It is an American thing. Our culture seems to be almost obsessed with the end times. When are they? Are they now? What's going to happen in the end times? Am I going to make the cut? Other cultures aren't nearly as preoccupied with those things as we are. They don't tend to read the same interpretation into the text that we do. It certainly is an American Evangelical church thing that has been pushing this obsession. Other serious Christian scholars outside the United States don't get it. They're confused with our fascination with this very book. I think a lot of it has to do with Christians in the United States almost are wishing that things could just be done with. There's this sentiment of, well, now that LGBTQ people have the right to marry, well, maybe Jesus can just come back right now and take me. Or maybe Jesus can come right back now so that I don't have to get this vaccine. Or something like this. They've taken God out of the schools. We can't even spank our own kids anymore. You can't say Merry Christmas to anyone, and Starbucks won't put baby Jesus on their cups anymore. Jesus just needs to come back and take us away from all this horrible stuff. Surely there's something in this dang book that can tell us about all these atrocious things that are happening to the American church, the horror of having to live here right now. Honestly, the church has been on the wrong side of history about a lot of things, and it seems like the ethos in our society is, instead of apologizing, instead of pressing into where we were wrong and making things right, we're just gonna dig our heels in. Let's, instead of doing that, read about this apocalyptic book about Jesus coming back and try to point to the prophecies coming true in today's society and hope that Jesus will come back and help us save face. It's sort of the equivalent of kids on the playground playing marbles. And once we realize we've been bested, standing up, swiping the marbles and complaining, fine, I'll take my marbles elsewhere. I didn't want to play here anyway. I feel like Jesus would be saying this to the church today. I get it. You were wrong about some stuff, but just apologize and make things better in the future. That's all I'm asking. That's all other people are asking for. And instead of doing that, I feel like the American church is like, nope, I'm not about to admit that I was wrong. I'm going to instead just wait for you to come back, Jesus, and rapture me away from this cruel world that's always being mean to me. Our society is obsessed with these end times, and it stands to reason that Left Behind and The Late Great Planet Earth are some of Christianity's best-selling books, which are obsessed about the end times. What do I think about all of this? I don't like it. As a follower of Jesus, I feel like it takes away from actually learning about Jesus and how he treated other people around him. I feel like it takes away from the actual struggle of living right here on earth in the crap with imperfect people and trying to figure all that out. How to actually love people just as I would want to be loved. I honestly can't fathom how learning what each of the 7 heads means in the Bible or whether we're going to go to war with Iran helps me to understand the Beatitudes better. Here's something that I have learned, and I've realized the closer that I get to Jesus, that there is a direct correlation to the amount of time that some people spend studying Revelation, Daniel, and Ezekiel in the Bible and the amount of time that I want to spend talking with them. I believe that if I were to put it onto a graph, it would be exponential. Here, let's take a look at this graph that I made. Boy, that curve gets pretty steep pretty quickly, doesn't it? Oh boy, look. I realize that people who have already had their hearts made up and are set in stone about Revelation are not going to be swayed by this video. But for people who are actually wondering, here are a few tips that I would use when going into Revelation. First and foremost, and this is the very thing that we must realize before we ever start to read or even attempt to use that word interpret, we must realize that Revelation was written as a letter to an actual physical group of churches, to a certain group of people, in a certain time frame. I don't think that the author of Revelation ever intended his letter to be read by other people. I don't think that the author, as he was writing it, was thinking like, oh, I gotta write in some really weird stuff to keep him guessing for millennia to come. No, it was written to certain people, in certain churches, in a certain time in history. Second, it was meant to be understood by its audience. We often approach Revelation when we go to read it from this kind of weird, spooky, mystical viewpoint, trying to figure out what these strange words could possibly mean in our context today. But they weren't written to us. They weren't written in our context. They were written to churches in a certain time. And I will repeat it, they weren't mystical to those churches. They were written to be understood by them in their context, in their time. Revelation was written using a very specific type of literature that was popular at the time called Apocalyptic Literature. Now, coincidentally, the name originally of this book is called the Apocalypse of John. There were lots of other apocalypses, though. There were apocalypses made by lots of other authors at the time. This type of literature was written deliberately with esoteric images. This type of literature was predominantly a Judeo-Christian thing, and it would have been understood by those receiving it. You see, even though Christians have been debating this for a long time now, historians haven't really been arguing about it. The author of Revelation wrote to churches using this literary form to describe the events that were surrounding them, the current events of the time. That's what this literature did. The church was highly oppressed under the reigns of certain Roman emperors. Now, Revelation was principally written about the church's oppression under Rome. Of course, you can't call it Rome because being murdered was less than ideal, so you had to call Rome something else, predominantly Babylon. And we have to understand there was major political upheaval at the time that this book was written. Revelation refers to 7 kings, and Christians have been trying to figure out who they were talking about for a long time now. Was Barack Obama one of the kings? Wait, no. He was the Antichrist, or one of the Antichrists. That's right, one of the Antichrists. Or where does Donald Trump fit in with all of this? You guys, people spend their lives thinking about all of this. Here is what we have to know today. All of that esoteric imagery that we see in Revelation was describing a person or events at the time that the letter was written. They weren't meant to be prophetic. It wasn't a prophetic type of literature. It was apocalyptic literature. People keep trying to figure out what the term 666 means or who will bear the mark of the beast. I've seen Christians talking about how the COVID vaccine is this mark, and people just keep changing what their thoughts are on certain things. You might remember when the euro came out as taking over all of Europe and the European Union as having one central currency. People were like, oh my God, one currency, the end is near. Now, once again, these things weren't meant to describe future events. They were descriptions of the current situation for when the letter was written. Almost all historians point to the term 666 as specifically referring to the Emperor Nero. We know what 666 means. You don't have to spend your time looking and wondering what it means. So many Christians are almost superstitious and form their faith around things like this in the Bible or this type of number, thinking that it's something bad, thinking that it's something evil that's going to come, or it's a mark of something horrible to come in the future. Well, I hate to tell you, Nero was not very nice to Christians, but that is all a long time ago. I recently read a story online of a woman who ordered fast food, and her total came up to $6.66. When she saw the total on the cash register, she was like, oh no, I don't want that number. I better throw in a corn dog on top. And the response of the cashier was priceless. Surely this woman is an inspiration to all of us. She's out here fighting off the powers of Satan with a corn dog as her weapon of choice. I love it. Friends, we have to do better. We look foolish. Here are 2 things that I would like to leave us with. Number 1, Revelation Bible study is a black hole of time. It takes and it takes and it rarely gives back. And I have to tread lightly here or the heresy police will come out and hit me with, but it's in the Bible, Kyle. Are you saying that a part of the Bible, God's inerrant holy word, shouldn't be studied? Wow, Kyle. Wow. Goodness. Calm down, people. It is a fine book to study. It's a beautiful book. I find a lot of beauty in the chapters of Revelation. However, if we find as followers of Jesus that we are spending more time fantasizing over the interpretations of this one book and less time trying to figure out how to actually be and act like Jesus, then I think that we've lost our way. And I don't think that that is a false dichotomy at all. I just don't think that Jesus is going to be very concerned with our views on Revelation when we meet. I can't for the life of me imagine meeting Jesus face to face and having him tell me this: Kyle, you really kind of messed up your interpretation of Revelation. It really was about Iran and Obama the whole time. You really screwed that up and you led lots of people astray. What I do think he's going to be more concerned with is, Kyle, how did you treat the least of those around you? Did you make the outcast feel accepted? Did you create a place of radical inclusion for people who are different than you? Did you truly try to love everyone as yourself? I don't know about you guys, but I think that that's the Jesus that I serve and worship, not the first one. The second thing I want to leave with you today is, if you are going to study the book of Revelation, please do so carefully with a historical understanding of what was happening at the time. Please be very skeptical of anyone who attempts to connect events in this letter to events that are actually happening in the world today. I can't tell you exactly who to trust, but I wouldn't trust people that try to do that. Hey, that's all the time that we have for today. Next week, we're going to be talking about a little piece of theology and Christianity called the Rapture. You won't want to miss it. I'll see you back here next week, same time, same place.